Hello and welcome to another entry in the Dreamcast Diaries. Today we're looking at Outtrigger. Outrigger. Outtrigger. It's Outtrigger, although my brain wants to say Outrigger every time. It is in fact Outtrigger. There's two T's, you see, a double T if you will. I will probably say it wrong multiple times in this video, but for full clarity, it is supposed to be Outtrigger. Outtrigger was developed by the legendary Sega AM2 for release in Japanese arcades in 1999. It later had a worldwide home port to the Sega Dreamcast in 2001, and that's what we will be looking at today. Outtrigger is ostensibly a deathmatch style shooting game in which you run around small arenas and shoot each other. First impressions are quite good. The graphics are nice and have the early 2000s Sega arcade feel to them, looking very clean and bright. I particularly like the physics on this guy's ponytail. Look at the way it bobs around, I love it. So I kick off with arcade mode, in which you first select a character. You can create your own character, but apart from picking which model it uses and changing your name, it doesn't really offer that much. I went with Elaine because of the aforementioned ponytail. You then pick a course, and you have 4 options of increasing difficulty: preparatory, novice, intermediate, and advanced. Starting with preparatory mode, this essentially acts as an initial training mode. The game contextualises this as being training for Interforce, the organisation you are supposedly a part of. The initial training is a simple shooting gallery, shooting the bad guys and trying not to shoot the good guys. Most missions in this game are based around a timer. You do something well, you gain a bit of time. You do something bad, you lose time. And if your time runs out, you fail the mission. These early shooting gallery missions are interspersed with some which require you to run around collecting medals, letting you learn movement and control. The final mission of this mode is a deathmatch, in which you run around with a bazooka and have to get 10 kills, all within the time limit. It's at this point in the game where we have to talk about the controls. Outtrigger supports 2 different camera modes, first person and third person. Both of these modes, however, are complicated by one thing: the Dreamcast controller. Now, as a shooting game, this game does support the Dreamcast mouse and keyboard, which lets it play like a PC shooter with controls that you would recognise. If you don't have those though, and I don't, then the controls are a little awkward. Take a look at the Dreamcast controller. Look right here. Notice what's not here? The second analog stick. Now you can't really blame Sega for this. When the Dreamcast was being designed in the mid-90s, second analog sticks were not really a thing. The DualShock controller on the PlayStation didn't come out until late in the PlayStation's life cycle, and even then, not all games supported it. The ones that didn't really play like how we play games today. There just wasn't a unified consensus on how console shooters are supposed to control. There are some famous examples of older games using the modern control style, but even then, it was very rare. This means if you are using the controller, moving and looking freely at the same time is very difficult to do. The standard mapping on the controller puts movement on the D-pad and camera control on the stick, with the L and R buttons letting you look right and left. Against the computer, this works well enough. You get used to mostly just using the L and R triggers to turn your character, and only aim when you are standing still. There are different control schemes though, and with a bit of awkward finger and hand placement, you can kind of control the game like a modern shooter. This probably wasn't as big a problem when the game came out, but my muscle memory over the years has got so used to having a second analog stick under my right thumb that going against it feels very difficult. I would love to see a game like this re-released, take advantage of modern controls and give it a new lease on life. Next up comes the Novice course, which is mostly made up of deathmatches and team deathmatches. One thing to note about this game is that all the maps are really small, tiny in fact. I actually think this was a smart decision. Reason being, this is meant to be an arcade style shooting game. Short rounds, lots of deaths. If the maps were too big, you'd run around for ages without finding anyone, a problem I think plagues some modern shooters. Keeping the maps small helps remedy this massively. Whether this was done as a deliberate game design choice or as a performance necessity, I don't know, but I think in the context of this game, smaller maps are better. Maps themselves though are a bit strange and don't really connect. You have this forest garden kind of map one in a mansion, one in this rocket facility, and a few other ones. They don't really tie together into one theme and seem all over the place. Classic Sega. Novice course wasn't a problem, so next up is the intermediate course. Things do get a little bit more difficult here. There's less time to complete the missions, enemies are a bit trickier, and overall gets a bit tougher. I managed to get through it though, and then finally onto the advanced course. This one really does bump up the difficulty. Enemies target you quickly and kill you more easily, some of them rushing towards you, whilst others stay back and pick you off. This particular battle around this little river took me a fair amount of time to beat. Eventually I managed to get in a good rhythm of being able to defeat the enemies at range whilst taking as little damage as possible. The final mission of the advanced mode changes things up a little, with you fighting these big robots in a stadium. It's pretty cool to be doing something different after largely fighting the same enemies all the time. However, they are pretty big targets, so it actually makes this final battle not too difficult at all. Once you beat this, you get a ranking and see the credits play over some footage of the game. There's also a mission mode, but it's nothing to write home about. Really, it's quite like the course mode, just individual missions instead of full courses. Nothing interesting to see here. Really, this was a game that was meant to be played multiplayer if you wanted to actually get any value out of it. Very strangely though, the European version of this game omitted the online mode and left it just to local play. This was a strange decision, but I suppose nowadays it doesn't make much of a difference. Outrigger is a fun game, and it's quite interesting to look back on shooting games from this time period. Modern first person and even third person shooters are dominated by Western developers, so it's interesting to see a Japanese take on it. I wonder if this had been more successful, and the Dreamcast as a whole, whether the direction of this genre would have been altered, and this more arcadey style would have been more prevalent. Who knows? It doesn't offer too much nowadays though, but for a couple of hours, it's not a bad game. Thank you for watching this video. You can subscribe to me for more videos or visit my website Valetic for written articles and stuff. Alright, goodbye.